All right, guys, good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well on this Saturday, one day short of the Super Bowl. And we are now going to finish up our linebacker series across two videos. We're going to talk about depth guys. We're going to talk about guys that you would sign, and the only reasonable expectation you can have is that they are depth and they are special teamers. Not that none of them will be able to give you starting caliber play, but to expect it would be unreasonable, and you wouldn't have to pay them like they're starters. So these are guys you sign to back up your top two guys, and we need guys like that right now. Even if we sign Ernest Jones, our first backup at linebacker is probably what, Drake Thomas. It's not where it needs to be. We probably need one more guy, and you could argue two. So let's go through some names here. I'm going to be quick. A lot of these guys, there's not a lot to say, so we're just going to say what needs to be said and then just go ahead and wrap it up. So first guy would be Devin Bush Jr., if that name sounds familiar. He was a Seahawk last year. Didn't play a lot for us. It didn't really work out all that well. He did, however, go to Cleveland last year and play decently well across 10 starts. He actually started most of the season, played, I think, a pretty good year. Nothing amazing or over the top, but he was effective. Pro Football Focus gave him a 79 grade, and I'm not saying Pro Football Focus is completely right here. In fact, I often doubt how they grade linebackers in general, but it is a decent sample size of 500 snaps. And remember, this guy's a blue chip talent. This guy's very talented, and he's been trying to fight his way back from an injury for a long time. Maybe it never fully happens, but maybe it partially happens. Anyway, Spotrac thinks he's going to get 1 year, 2.7. So if you sign him as your backup linebacker at that rate, that's pretty good. Next guy is going to be Willie Gay Jr. of the New Orleans Saints. He spent 4 years and won 2 Super Bowls on the Chiefs. Played a lot of games for the Chiefs across his career, actually. So was a big part of some very good defenses and very good teams. Won himself a couple rings. Went to New Orleans last season, and he started 8 games, didn't really do that much. And, it's not the same. It's not the same. So he's clearly not a guy that you want to be starting for you, I think. He was able to start in Kansas City's defense because they have Spagnuolo, who is incredibly good, and they have other really good players. I would not want this guy to be my starter. Pro Football Focus thought he was really bad last year, 44 grade. The year before that, when he was in Kansas City, they still didn't think he was that good. Again, it's Pro Football Focus. Take it for what it's worth, which often isn't much here. But I don't get the impression that this guy's particularly good with Pro Football Focus in consideration or not. Spotrac does not have a market value page for him, but I don't think he's going to do better than the $3 million he got from New Orleans last year. I think it's going to go down, so I would estimate like 1 year, $2.5 million for Willie Gay. That would be my guess. So Willie Gay, 1 year, 2.5 million. Can't go too wrong as a backup. He was a second round pick. He is talented. Not a terrible idea. Malik Harrison. This is an interesting one. Malik Harrison, third round pick of the Ravens in 2020. Spent 5 years in Baltimore. Every year he starts anywhere from 5 to 8 games at linebacker, and he's played a decent amount. He's never been a full-time guy, obviously, but he's been consistently a reliable force up front. And this is a guy who was there with McDonald. McDonald was the DC in 2022 and 2023. Before then, I think he was the linebacker coach, so there's still some crossover. I think that in 2021 he might have been at Michigan, and then 2020 he was a linebacker coach in Baltimore. So there's crossover. I would absolutely not be surprised if McDonald goes, I want to bring one of my guys from Baltimore over. This guy's not going to be expensive. This guy's not a full-time starter. So don't be surprised. PFF did not like him at all last year. 50.7. Take it for what it is. 370 snaps. The year before that, however, when McDonald was there, 2023, liked him a lot. 71.8, 200 snaps. So he was very much a backup, but an efficient backup, an effective backup. He did his job 100%. Spotrac says 1 year, 2.3 million. So pretty good price for a guy that McDonald might have some affinity towards. who might have upside, by the way. He hasn't turned 27 yet. There might be a little bit of extra upside here that we don't even know about. Devin White, very curious story here with Devin White, former top 5 overall pick, former Pro Bowler, former Super Bowl winner, former All-Pro. He's completely fallen off the map, man. This was one of the better linebackers in the league at first, and for the last couple years, it's not coming together. He barely played last year. He played a little bit for Houston. I think he was on Philly for a little bit and didn't play a snap before he left, or didn't record a stat at least. So you figure it out. They thought he was okay. Pro Football Focus this last year, 176 snaps, not a big sample size, but they thought he was okay, I guess. Year before that, they thought he was really bad. This was the last year in Tampa, 900 snaps, one of the worst graded linebackers out there. So the curious case of Devin White. That's what we're going to call this one. There's talent here. There's a history of great play, but at this point, if Devin White is anything, he's a backup and a special teamer. And that feels very weird to say, but Spotrac tells it too. 1 year, $2.3 million. That's a special teamer, backup, reserve, depth money. So not a terrible idea either. I mean, I'm not going to say too much on whether or not I think any one option's better than the other. To me, these players that we're talking about, for the most part, any one is as good as any other, and it's just a matter of what you think fits what you're doing. So if McDonald feels like Devin White's a fit for what he does, then great. If not, then no. Chris Byrd, this is another former Baltimore Raven linebacker. There's not as much crossover with McDonald because he spent 2022 in Detroit and 2023 in New England. I think there's some crossover from 2018 to 2020, but he hasn't played a lot in his career at any point. He has 4 career starts, 114 career games played. He did make a non-trivial impact in 2020 and 2021, excuse me, but this is for the most part a special teamer, backup. Occasionally he gets a start, but there's nothing here to indicate he's anything other than a career backup. That's nice to have around. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but we're talking about a guy here who has had 7 years in the NFL and 4 career starts. Pretty obvious there isn't much here other than just quality depth. And there's something to be said for that. I don't know if McDonald feels any affinity here, but if he does, then he'll be available pretty reasonably. PFF did think he played really well last year, I guess. 74.4, only 170 snaps, but we hopefully we wouldn't even need 170 snaps from him because our starters stay healthy, right? You're not getting Chris Byrd thinking he's going to play 1,000 snaps. If Chris Byrd plays 1,000 snaps, your season's already kind of hanging on the brink just by virtue of that. And it's nothing to do with Chris Byrd. It's not his fault. So Spotrac does have a page for him, 1 year, $1.9 million. So, hey, if you sign him at 1.9 and all you get is a quality special teamer, then you did okay. And if you get somebody who can be a part-time player on defense, then you're doing well. You're doing very well for yourself. Troy Dye, most recently of the Chargers, formerly a Viking, had a couple of brothers in the NFL as well. Has never really been a full-time starter in this league. He has started 13 games in 5 years. Started 5 games for the Chargers last year, and hey, their defense was great. 57 total tackles, so he was a meaningful player, but this is not a guy you signed to be a full-time starter at this point, I don't think. He was 28 last year, so it's not like he's entering his prime. He's already been in his prime. Theoretically, he should be what he is. He's going to turn 29 right about the time the season starts. So I don't think you're looking at Troy Dye and saying, oh, he's going to be a really good starting caliber player next year. He is what he is, a decent backup with special teams value. Pro Football Focus does like him. They did give him a 68.8, 318 snaps, so there is some value here, but you have to be real about what that value is. Spotrac, 1 year, $1.8 million. So very reasonably priced. You're going to get what you pay for, and sometimes there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you have the right expectations. He should be your third linebacker. He should be your first guy off the bench, be part of your special teams unit. Maybe he gets in on occasional packages, and that's about it. Chris Barnes. Chris Barnes of the Arizona Cardinals. Green Bay guy, undrafted rookie in Green Bay. Actually started a lot of games in Green Bay before moving on. Played a good amount, was a part of that defense, significantly so. Last 2 years he's been on Arizona. Started 6 games in 2023, and then last year became kind of a full-time backup. Did some stuff, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying otherwise, but didn't start any games, wasn't a big part of proceedings. He's a backup. I guess he hasn't turned 27 yet. He does in April, but I don't think there's much here other than a decent enough backup. Pro Football Focus did think he played decently last year, 63.1, pretty good. Year before that, a little worse, but still okay. So I think that's a pretty good estimation of what he is. He's an okay player when used in moderation. Like last year, he only got 200 snaps. So he's a backup, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with being a backup sometimes. Botrack says 1 year, 1.7 million, pretty cheap, well priced. Nothing wrong with it. Final guy for this video is Eric Wilson of the Green Bay Packers, another undrafted rookie, but he's a good deal older than some of the guys we've looked at. Started with the Vikings, went to the Eagles, went to the Texans, landed on the Packers. This last year, he did start 12 games, so it's not like he's never been a starter. He did start for Green Bay, but I think it's pretty clear that's not what you want him to be doing, unless you have tremendous faith in your other players on defense or your coaching staff or your scheme to make it so the linebackers don't matter that much. There's just not enough here to get excited about as anything other than quality depth. So Eric Wilson, PFF thought he played admirably last year, 65.8. That's a little bit better than you would expect from a backup. But I still suspect that this guy is not much more than that. Remember, he was 30 last year. He turns 31 in September. So he might be exiting his prime. You don't always assume that everybody follows the exact same path. Like sometimes some people enter their prime at 25 and leave it at 27. But once you get past 30, it's time to start thinking about your play declining. Spotrack gives him 1 year, 1.6. So a little bit more than veteran minimum. We're getting into that veteran minimum territory now. And I don't think you can go too wrong with it. I think it would be a little more exciting to go with somebody younger. It always is. But if McDonald likes what he sees here, then it can't be bad. All right. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. And one more video with linebackers. Again, we're doing lightning round to get through all these guys. I don't want to keep this stuff up longer than it needs to. But those are some good depth options for the 2025 Seattle Seahawks at linebacker.